Chris and Chris Talk Business.
Welcome to the Chris and Chris podcast. It's great to have you here. I'm Chris and you are?
I am also Chris.
Wow, what a coincidence. We have a show and then our names are actually the same names as the names on the show.
Those are our real names.
Those are our real names. Anyway, we got a friend, Cory, is here today to tell us about his business. And Cory's actually a member of my church. So why don't you introduce yourself, Cory, and your business, and just tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll just jump right in and ask all sorts of questions.
Sure.
And you'll reveal things that you shouldn't say, and we'll be able to like broadcast it across the world.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Cory Thomas. I own a wealth management company, so we do investment management, financial planning, and such. And our members at now First Presbyterian Church of Battleground, which has been awesome. I've been married for almost 13 years. Have 5 kiddos, all under 10 years old at the moment.
Excitement.
Yeah, it's we have a birthday today for my 7, actually now 7. So super fun having a bunch of little kids running around.
Yeah,
and has been an interesting dynamic, but really grateful as an entrepreneur and being able to create an environment where my wife can stay home. She homeschools them and create that kind of dynamic. And obviously I had to make a lot of hard decisions early on to be able to get to that point now. And anyways, yeah, super grateful and blessed in that regard. And
so this is interesting because I know a lot of guys who would love to be in the spot you're right now.
Sure.
You know, not just with the business, but a wife who can stay at home, and you've got 5 kids. But having gotten to know you a little bit and heard the story before, it didn't just fall in your lap. You built this. And so can you kind of give us the little bit of the history on how you got into this?
Yeah. It's there's multiple chapters for sure that go into the actual history of where I've gotten to now. So I'll kind of go, I think it's an interesting start, if you don't mind, because when I ended up going to Multnomah Bible College and was in their pastoral ministry track and Bible theology. And that was, in those really formative years of about 18, 19, and kind of had a refreshed spiritual experience, and was very motivated to learn the Bible. And
What year was that? Just so I can...
That would have been 2012.
Okay.
2011 or so.
Man, you're young.
Yeah.
But this is great for Chris to hear, because he thinks that all the guys that are studying for the ministry are just totally worthless.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how we met.
Sure.
We're not going to talk about that though.
Anyways, but you are like a reality check.
Yeah. Well, fun fact, I actually went to Concordia University right out of high school, and I was going to be a business major and play baseball. And So
you went for baseball and decided to be a business major. I'm guessing that's how
you
it
do.
worked.
You just kind of pick whatever seems interesting, but you're there to play baseball. And I had a pretty nagging arm injury, so my baseball career ended pretty much quicker than it started there. So I lasted 1 semester. Yeah. And through that semester, I had a lot of things changing in my life that inspired me to start thinking bigger. And I met my wife there, so got that job done.
Yeah,
spent $40,000 to meet my wife. None of those credits transferred, but it was well worth the money.
Yeah.
And decided and had the conviction that I wanted to go study the Bible and pursue more of a ministry career. So ended up going to Multnomah and was knee deep in doing all the Bible theology stuff and getting into the pastoral ministry, and had struck up an internship at the church that I was pretty much attending most of my childhood and into my teen years as a youth pastor. So was really doing the typical seminary route of you kind of work at a church, you're studying, and you're just got married, so you're married in married housing.
Right.
And my wife was in nursing school. So at any rate, finished my time there, and by the end of it, there was a lot of really good things, would never change it for the world, but by my senior year, I was pretty disenchanted with the church, ironically.
Well, I understand.
And I learned too much. I saw behind the curtain too much by working at a church and by studying. Again, no scandals or anything like that. It was just more of, what is the what is the church and what's the purpose of the church, and how do I not know that at this point and going to make a career out of that.
Yeah.
I
So
think he's arguing my point for me. To your point. I feel.
You don't have to whisper that.
yeah.
Was I whispering?
And you
Sorry
see that
about
a lot of seniors in college in these Bible schools, they feel like they're 5 steps backward from when they started.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I wasn't having any existential crisis over my
Yeah.
faith or anything like that. It was just more of figuring out, what does this look like? And I was still working at that church. So long story short, in that way, that, as a lot of youth ministry positions are, it was like part-time plus. The pay was part-time, but the work was plus.
Yeah, I did that thing.
So I had to supplement that work.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking a full-time job out at Intel in Hillsboro.
Okay.
Just working, it was just a grunt job. I was like putting water chemicals in cooling towers and things like that down in the fabs. And would do that during the day, then do the youth pastor thing at night. And I remember when I was doing that, it was a long commute. It's like an hour back and forth. And I remember just on the way home, like all I could really think about wasn't how do I build this ministry career, but I would be looking at like, what business can I need to make a business. I was always very entrepreneurial.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where my mind went, was I need to start a business, and it could be anything. I don't even care what it is, but I cannot be a badge number my whole life. This is terrible.
Right. Yeah. So kind of just pouring chemicals into like big vats was not like your
No,
thing.
for like
Yeah.
$13 an hour.
Right.
It just wasn't the way.
Right.
That
right.
was a lot of money back then.
Potentially, yeah. It was.
But let's just think a little bit about this. So, what gave you the sense that you were entrepreneurial? Kind of. Because I think maybe a lot of guys are wondering that. Am I? What were some of the things? Was it just the fact that you didn't like working for somebody else, or
There was an element of I was very independent,
Yeah.
and did not like the inefficiencies of big corporation.
Yeah.
I would listen to podcasts while I was working out there on, like, I think Dave Ramsey had like entrepreneurship
Yeah.
podcast. And I would just listen to those podcasts and be like, my manager should do that. And I can't
Yeah.
believe they're not doing this. And
Right.
just being like, if I was ever in charge, this is how
Right.
I would do it. But I wasn't in charge, so I had no say.
Right.
And so I got really interested in just like business efficiencies and how do you incentivize things and do sales.
Yeah.
It was just an interesting topic for me. And then meanwhile, I still wasn't really making hardly any money, all said and done. So I spent a lot of time on like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, and really enjoyed the bartering.
Oh, so you were selling stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
I loved garage sales. I
Okay.
remember we lived in this apartment in downtown or northeast Portland, and I brought home like this huge single person fly fishing pontoon with a motor on the back. And it was like in our living room. My wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, it was such a good deal. I saw it at this garage sale.
Can't pass up those
I
kind of
was like,
savings.
I don't know what it's worth, but I'm on eBay. I'm going to figure it out. And
Yeah.
ended up flipping that. And then I got into like surfboards. There's decent like surfboard scene in Portland. So I'd find deals on surfboards and flip those.
So just kind of get into that. So, was it just a gut feeling that I think this thing is worth more than what I paid for it?
I think, I think there was a natural instinct to be like, I know there's value in these sort of, distribution channels, whether it be a garage sale or
Sure.
Craigslist. People just want to get rid of things,
Yeah.
and they'll leave a lot of meat on the bone. So I knew
Right.
that.
Right.
And then being, kind of a older millennial and kind of savvy with the internet, it was very easy for me to, like, I would just take a picture of something and go run it through eBay and just get a quick pulse on, is this worth $1,000, $100, and they're selling it for 20? I don't even know what, I would do it with anything. I would do it with video games or whatever stuff I had no interest in, but I'm like, I could sell this. And just kind of make nickels and dimes doing that. So.
But that's a great sort of way to test your entrepreneurial gifts and your sense of value and your sense of what maybe you can do in terms of like sales. I mean, that's obviously,
or even cleaning things up. I remember I would cruise the free channel or whatever on Craigslist, things for free, and some guy was selling like tractor tires, and they were all in this barn. And I was like, well, those are worth something.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I went and checked it out. And while I was there, I was like, hey, you got anything else? He's like, yeah, you want this big car battery and this, that, and the other. So I just like came home with this junk for free and ended up making like $2,000 because the tractor tires, they were all dusty. I cleaned them up. They ended up being John Deere yellow, and some collector guy called about them, and was able to, free was a great price. So you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
So that's where I would start. And I still hold that value today, which is like, if I'm going to invest in something, I want instant equity, whether it's because I can put some sweat equity into it or what.
Yeah, let's just think about that. So that there are these things that are just kind of sitting around that have value that other people don't recognize the value. But you taking it off their hands is valuable from their perspective.
Right.
So it's not like you're like doing something unfair. I mean, they're the ones who decided that they wanted to give it away.
Yeah.
Now, here's a hypothetical. Let's say you came across something you recognize was like really worth a lot.
Right.
Would you have any qualms just taking it? Or would you just say, thanks? I know it's a setup. I've asked myself that question.
Yeah. Well, I wish that's happened. I don't think that's ever happened. I wish it would.
It's a nice problem to have.
These days, it's hard to find things that are that misappropriated in their value. But if it did on a moral level, I think it's contextual.
Yeah.
I think, if you got this old lady type where you really feel like you're taking advantage, I think there's a difference between taking advantage of the person and taking advantage of the situation.
Yep.
So I think, for example, I think this just happened the other day. I've been looking for a slip tank. It's, holds diesel that you put in like the back of your truck, like 100 gallons at a time. And I wanted to get one of those for my truck at home so I didn't have to go into town and fill up gas cans. So I've been looking on Facebook, and they're around like used $1,000 with a pump. But I wanted one that matched my truck. So I've been just looking, and there was someone posted one for $700. It was the exact one I wanted, really clean. I was like, okay, that's a good deal. It's not like crazy, but it's a good deal. So I'm going to check in. And I was like, hey, I'd like to pick this up. So I went down there, and he said, hey, by the way, this came off one of our fleet vehicles. It was a business, and we had just filled it up with diesel. So there's like $600 worth of diesel in this thing. And he's like, and we have a matching toolbox with it. Do you want me to throw that in there too? So at this rate, I'm paying $700. It's already got $600 of diesel in it that I was going to put in it the next day anyways.
Sure.
So you could say that would be there's a giant disconnect of what the value is and what I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
Did I feel bad?
I wouldn't
shaking
feel
his
bad.
hand. No.
That is exactly what it's worth. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was an element that like he just worked for this big company. He was tasked to sell this thing. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a good example of a great opportunity that maybe I could be like, no, man, I got to pay you at least $1,000. And I did not feel the motivation to do that at all.
I wouldn't advise you to do that either. But I guess the thing is there are a lot of folks out there who maybe have a set of sensitivities that really don't make sense, kind of in the sort of the wild west of business. They're used to going into grocery stores or going into Target and paying whatever the price tag says and that kind of thing. And we got into this a couple of shows back on haggling.
Yeah,
I love haggling. I live for the haggle.
I'll be the first one to say I love the idea of haggling, and I've read multiple books on negotiation. I've just really interesting to me. Do I enjoy the tension of haggling? Not so much. Like I said, I'd rather find low-hanging fruit as it is and just kind of get in and get out.
Well, that's an interesting distinction. I think that's a valuable distinction. So, you're still kind of haggling, but it's not like explicit kind of face-to-face kind of thing.
Right. And I'll like anyone else on Facebook, hey, $700, would you take 600? But I just want to kind of get that out of the way.
Sure.
I don't really enjoy people who do this, so I don't really want to be one of those people that show up.
Yeah.
And you're under the inclination that they're going to pay full price, and then they hit you with the this, that, and the other thing. I don't think it's wrong by any means.
Yeah.
It's just an uncomfortable feeling. Mm-hmm. But I think it, to your point about how some people don't like it, which I would agree, I'm kind of one of them. I like the principle of it, but not the practice. I think it's more of a reflection of your own insecurities than it is a moral thing.
Oh yeah.
So I don't
moral
like I said, I don't think it's a moral thing at all. It's just like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to make this person uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. Let's just avoid this altogether, and that can benefit one party or the other. But
But the fact that you recognize that in yourself and you found still a way to kind of be kind of out in the market and finding opportunities.
Yeah.
So I think I guess that's kind of the thing that's just worth thinking about. Because let's say a person who's listening to us right now would say, that show that Chris and I were talking about haggling, and they're like feeling, I don't know if I could ever do that. Doesn't mean that you can't be in the market and doing some really creative and good things for yourself the way you're doing it.
When you asked the question, I started pondering I do like haggling, and I started pondering right now, like, what is my desire and what is driving me to haggle? And I think it comes, the goal for me is getting to the best price that both of us, getting to the real price that we're both willing to accept. And then I thought, the second thought was, I actually don't haggle anymore. But what am I doing to get to the best price? I think I do my haggling in my head. And I mean, typically my negotiation now is I've already predetermined where I think they're at and where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is where I think we're at. And if I'm on, and I think I usually am, the negotiation's quick, because it's
Right.
like I've done the haggling for both of us in my head.
Right.
But
I think you ever see the film Casablanca?
I haven't.
Casablanca,
No.
ever see that? Well, there's this. It's about Morocco during the Second World War, and it's got Humphrey Bogart in it and stuff like that. And anyway, classic film. But there's a scene in the marketplace where these Europeans are like shopping, and then they come across this Muslim Moorish guy who's selling goods, and he asks for this outlandish price because he sees that they're from Europe and they probably have the resources to pay whatever he asks. And then Rick shows up, who's Humphrey Bogart, and he's for a friend of Rick. He's like cuts it in half,
Right.
and he keeps cutting it. But I think that's the thing to think about, is that in a situation like that, the person you're buying from is also playing the game and is like really marking things up and to see what that person can get. But you're talking about just kind of like garage sales, regular people.
Well, and I think that in just today's moment of culture, that game is not agreed upon about everyone. So
Sure.
there are other cultures. You go down to Mexico or whatever on the beach, and
Right.
if you don't know we're playing the game, you're going to get hosed.
Yeah.
Right.
You're paying
But
4X.
I just think in our society, that's not an agreed upon thing anymore. So when I have someone come to my house and they, this is a real story, they quoted me like $2,000 to adjust my sprinkler system. To me, I'm not like initially thinking, oh, we're playing the game. How about $500? I could probably,
Right.
To me, I'm just like, you're trying to take advantage of me. So I don't care what you come back. I don't even care if you drop the price at this point. I'm going to someone else.
Gotcha.
And I think there's a reality of that going on where we don't all agree to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so that haggling.
Right. Now, is that still true like with like cars? Like it seems to be like there are certain places where the old game still gets played.
Yeah.
Like when you're buying a car or a real estate,
So interesting story. We bought a vehicle this past year, and I was thinking of all my negotiation books. I'm going to go, this is the one. I'm going to take the,
Right.
And it got, I don't know if they're just trained or if it's real, because I think those industries are changing too, because I was deflated the moment that I got in the door, because I said, hey, this is the truck I'm looking at. And he's like, what's your budget? I told him my budget. He goes, yeah, we're probably going to need to look at these trucks. And I'm like, well, no, I really want this truck. He's like, well, it's not in your budget.
Gotcha.
And I'm like, all right, well, let's look at that truck. So we started looking at it, and I just set it up. I wanted to buy it. So then I started talking to him when we get to the paperwork. And he's like, so this is the price. This is this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, well, can we come down? I tried. I was like, is that the actual price, or are we able to work on that a little bit? He's like, this is the price that I'm told. And then he told me, he goes, I got to be honest. He goes, I make like $200 selling this vehicle. So he doesn't have any incentive. And I think that maybe some of these industries have removed the incentive.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so it really took the wind out of my sails, because I'm like, oh, poor guy, he's only making $200.
Right. That's right. Now let's think about the world of the kind of the business acquisition, because it seems like that's still like wide open, kind of crazy kind of place. So Well, let's get into a little bit about your business and how
Sure.
it's grown, because
You want to talk about haggling for an hour? I could, but
well,
I
I'd
forgot
like to
we're here to
get,
talk
want
about
to make
his
sure
business.
we get to the business though, that Cory is involved with, because you're acquiring,
Yeah.
new sort of like sites.
Yeah.
Well, tell the story.
Yeah. So just to kind of put a bow in the story I started, I ended up making a decision to look into some other careers. And I had a mentor at the church we were going to, and kind of a funny but simple story is I was asking him, like, you're a custom home builder, you're really successful, I really admire what you do and how you're a leader in the church. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. And he just asked me, he goes, hey, have you ever thought about going into finance, like being a financial advisor? I said, I don't even know what that means. I've never met one, don't know what that is. And he goes, well, what I could tell you is I've built some really nice houses for some, and you kind of remind me of them.
Oh, wow.
So
that's interesting.
That was his advice.
Yeah.
And I was like, sold. I'm in. And actually, I went to the library and was trying to find books on it. Couldn't find really much on it. But it started networking, and then got an opportunity to work at what ended up being an insurance. Kind of got the bait and switch. I'm like, yeah, you're a financial advisor. No, you're going to sell life insurance.
Right.
And so I lasted a couple months there, and it's like, I don't really like this, but that door opened up other doors. I got more perspective, and started on the path of, okay, I think I know what I want to do. I want to manage people's money. I want to help them get to retirement or invest or so on and so forth. Where can I do this? And so that opens up every, Edward Jones or every bank, where do you go? How do you do this? And unfortunately, I talked to some of these larger institutions and had the same kind of gut feeling I did with insurance, where I'm like, I'm just an employee here, representing you and your products. And I'm like, I kind of saw myself as, I want to be like an attorney for a family, but for their finances.
Yeah.
So it's me and them against the world.
Right.
I'm on their side of the table.
Right.
But if I'm working for this large brand, I'm on the other side selling you products.
Right.
So it's like, where do I find that? And oddly enough, I had a friend who had interned with an independent advisor in Battleground back when he was in high school. He's like, hey, you should go meet with Joe. He could probably tell you. So I met with this guy, Joe, and he had done the big corporate finance stuff for years and had recently broke off and went independent. And that's when I met him. And he gave me the best advice I ever got in the industry, which was, hey, if you're going to do this job and you're going to be any good at it, do yourself a giant favor and be independent on day one. He goes, I put in 10, 15 years and I'm fighting non-compete lawsuits, everything. And it's just been the most stressful season of my life just to go do what I want to do and get my clients to come with me. And I was naive enough or whatever, because that's a very difficult thing to do with zero support, zero branding, anything. I didn't really know even if I got a client, I didn't even know what to say. I didn't know anything.
Give me your money and I will do things.
Yeah. And so you kind of get roped into these big firms because they give you training and a salary and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I was, again, very entrepreneurial. I was like, well, if anyone could do it, it's me. I could do it. So he was gracious enough to say, you can work in my office. I'll take a cut of everything that you do, but I'll kind of teach you the ropes. And I'm kind of looking for a long-term predecessor anyways. And so like, yeah, let's do it. So ended up working in there for a couple of years. And like I said, my spirit is very independent. So I kind of started naturally just disenfranchising myself from him, where I felt like I was like, I think I can even do things better than you're kind of old school in these ways. So I started carving out my own path and building out my own independent practice. Like he never gave me any clients or anything. So once I kind of got my feet on the ground, felt a lot more confident in that. And there was another gentleman in the office who had been there a few years longer than me doing something similar. We had connected, became pretty good friends in the process. He was living up closer. He was in Seattle and I was down here. And we ended up saying, hey, what if we just join forces? We don't see how this whole situation with this guy is going to work for everyone long-term. He's a little older than us and we're having a hard time seeing how this works. So we ended up leaving and starting what we have now, which is Sound Foundation Wealth Advisors. So we had enough experience, enough of our own clients, enough of our own vision and best practices where we felt like we could actually build something that we were super proud of and double down on all those convictions about being independent and a fiduciary and all these things. So it was just me and him, and we hired our first admin that he met from church. And
Common story.
as you do.
Yep.
And we were all working remotely because she was in Seattle, he was in another part of Seattle, and I was down here. And that's an important part of our story is that this was before COVID, but we were forced because of that dynamic is how do we build a business system where we could all work remotely was really the goal.
Right.
So we started looking into things like OneDrive and cloud services and Slack and DocuSign. And these things were foreign in our industry, even in 2016.
Yeah.
Like nobody was using this stuff. And we're like, hey, there's all this great technology. Let's start using it. And hey, we could start working and not actually have to be in an office together.
But why wouldn't you just use one Word document and just keep passing that around?
Yeah, exactly.
That reminded me of our, like, we had this Word document and eventually there was like multiple renditions of the Word document.
Okay.
Then you were like, you couldn't keep them straight.
Right.
And that was like Google Drive was, I mean, there were fancy solutions, but Google Drive was like, hey, we could just do this. And like the first day we're using it, you're watching other people edit the document that you're, there's, and then there was one document, we never messed it up. So sorry to interrupt you, but you just gave me a good flashback back to the good old days of when fun stuff was happening.
Well, and it's interesting when you start a business, you get the luxury of being able to build with what is available now.
Yeah.
Because to unwind, to all these older advisors' defense, to unwind what you did in the 90s and 2000s when you're established is very, very difficult. Right. Not only are they having to be kind of an old dog that's learning new tricks, but then they just have the logistics of how do you migrate this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was very early on in the Zoom and the DocuSign, but it was established enough where we could really start using it. And so we built that out just for our own use purposes so we could work together. And anyways, we kind of the next chapter of the story is we grew very well. And it was just him and me, and we did everything split. And Mike
just word of mouth, and
we do a lot of referrals. We do have some niche markets, which is a big passion point of mine, by the way. We can get into that.
Yeah, I like to. Yeah.
But especially in my industry, where most people, most competition, try to be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And are generalists.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into that a little bit because I've got a little story that relates to that. But I'd like to hear your story. So. What are these niche sort of markets in the financial planning world?
Yeah, so there have always been very large general niches, which is I work with retirees, or I work with young people, or I work with business owners, right? And those have been around for a long time. But one thing that my business partner found out earlier, even before I was with him at all, he found some niche markets that were really interesting. And the simple version of it is essentially, if you work for an employer and you have a 401k, generally speaking, you're kind of on your own for managing that account. Even if you have a financial advisor, they can't manage it because it has to stay at that employer and they can't transfer the money to you and they can't really give you advice because you don't have a agreement for it. So the irony is the lion's share of a lot of people's monies is in their current 401k. And even if they have a financial advisor who's doing their college savings accounts or whatever, they can't get help with it. So there's this disconnect. And what my business partner found out was there's actually some large employers that coming out of 2008 added a benefit to the plan that if you met certain requirements as an advisor, you could actually be added on to the plan as the advisor for that client. Nobody was doing that. No employees knew this was an option. No advisors really knew what this was an option or qualified to even do it themselves. And this was at multiple hospitals, tech firms, you name it. And so that was, once we found that out, we're like, there is millions and millions of dollars here. No one's getting help. This is where most of their money is. They're certainly not getting financial planning. So if we can actually offer this, the name of the game is just getting the word out. So we would essentially spent the first 5-6 years in that season spending a lot of time trying to get into those communities. And for me, Intel, that short little season I had there was a natural touch point. I knew people that worked there and they had this benefit. So I started networking kind of back with them and trying to use LinkedIn and all these different sources to just build contacts. And then once you get one person and they say, hey, Bob, I was talking to my colleague and he wants to meet with you too, because it was just an open field of opportunity.
Yeah, there are a couple.
Clients.
Yeah, there are a couple of things here that interest me. I think worth digging into because I think, are transferable to other things. One is that you recognize something that other people didn't see.
Mhm.
So this kind of gets back to the see the money kind of thing before
Yep.
other people do. So you saw an opportunity and you didn't have any competition initially. Are you starting to see competition for that market, or is it still? Maybe we shouldn't publish this episode.
I know. I do have that in the back of my mind. Who's listening to this?
But so it's still niche enough that there's just not a lot of attention.
They're still it's becoming more well known because some of the investment fund companies that we use they have to, basically how we manage it leans a lot on how some investment companies position their funds. And it's not to get into that, but they're creating more marketing for it because they want other advisors to say, hey, you can do this and use our funds and use our investment strategies to do this. So they're out there trying to evangelize to other advisors. But again, it's such a unfamiliar territory to, again, the average age of the advisor in my industry is like 60 something.
Really? Wow.
So they're not super motivated to learn new things.
Right. Well, that's another thing to notice or to take note of. I think identifying industries where there's just going to be a lot of transfer of sort of business in the next 10 years or so. But I think the larger thing that interests me is just this ability to recognize an opportunity.
Yeah.
And do you have the eyes to do that? I think a lot of folks can develop that ability, but they just don't get much opportunity. I hear a little bit of, I see a doubt.
I don't know. I think that's something you have or you don't have it. And maybe you can acquire it, but when you just said being able to identify opportunities, it made me ponder, like, how do I identify? And I'm like, I think these are skills that I started developing at a very young age.
Okay.
Well, how much of it, maybe this is short-sighted, but how much of it is luck too? And you hear this common theme with a lot of entrepreneurs. There's like a little bit of luck and then a lot of hard work and skill. And I would say that for me is like, I didn't find this opportunity. I didn't create the opportunity in the industry. I was brushed shoulders with it and was introduced to it and had some sort of foresight to say, this is what I'm going to pursue. But I didn't create that. I didn't see like, one day I was thinking, we have all these 401ks and no one's managing them. And I wonder if there's a thing we can build to help do that. That was not what I was thinking. It was more if someone else had thought that, had created that, and it was still in its infancy when I got introduced to it. And that's what I dove into.
It, you had enough.
You were able to identify it.
Yeah, get into it that this is something that could work.
And I think it goes back to, there is an element, the luck element is when you identify it, but you're playing the game. At that point, you're already playing the game, even going back to 2012, you're already thinking business minded. So if I'm applying my ideology to you, because it's obviously the same, because we all do things exactly the same. I'm being sarcastic. By then you've already developed these skills where I'm guessing you're constantly valuing or evaluating situations. And so when that situation comes along, you're aware, you recognize it and you can start thinking through it. I think most people aren't playing the game. They're not evaluating situations as entrepreneurs.
And you're going to evaluate 99 situations that have no legs on them. And then you'll finally hit that one.
Right. I mean, every day I'm I use the example of real estate because people are like, well, when should I start looking at real estate? And I'm like, you should always be looking at real estate. Practice the art of looking at real estate. And, my wife, we just bought the property we bought in Florida. She's like, you bought that thing like immediately. And I was like, well, I have been looking for 2 years, and we came across one that was great. And, now she recognizes and she uses some of the, I'm really slow until I'm not. And then, when I identify something, it's like,
you got to move quick.
It's 30 days, and so I think the luck, so I don't call that luck. I think that's, you're playing the game and eventually you're going to hit,
Yeah. Well, there's something interesting about the word luck. And there's a great book that was very influential to me. I don't know the author. I believe the title is just called Curious.
I think I've heard of it.
And it was a Hollywood producer. I don't know what movies he did, but some movie about a whale or something. I don't know. But he he wrote this book called Curious. I don't even know how I got introduced to it, but it was actually very influential to me, and I recommend it to a lot of people. I should probably know the name of the author, but it's a book kind of about how do you create your own luck. And
Yes, right.
his whole thing, and he talks about his time in Hollywood or before Hollywood and how he got into it. And the whole thesis of the book is if you have a spirit of curiosity every day, then you will create your own luck. And that's through conversations with people. And he has story after story on how he kind of created his own luck to get into Hollywood and be a big producer or whatever he does now, director. And that was very inspiring for me to go beyond what at first glance you see. If you see a real estate property, at first glance, you're like, nope, too expensive, move on. But if you just got curious for a second and peeked behind the door, there might be something there. And it only takes you a minute, or talking to that person or bumping shoulders with this, and you start drumming up your own luck, because on surface level, it could feel very bleak to a lot of people who want to become entrepreneurs. They're like, there's no opportunity.
Sure.
And you're like, it's because you're just seeing the very surface of every industry. And you need to somehow get beyond that. And if you don't have the know-how to look beyond it, you need to just start opening doors and talking to people, and you'll see that there are nuances in there.
Well, I'd piggyback on that. When you look at, hundreds or 1,000 pieces of real estate, there are going to be ones that are going to make you curious.
Right.
Why is this one half price? And you look into it and you're like, oh, there's a problem with it, which, nobody wants to buy this property. But the problem might be like, it needs to have a new roof. And you're like, well, I can put a roof on, So then it becomes an opportunity. But to your point, if you weren't curious enough to,
well, and even then, you have to have a large enough sample size to recognize that this is really an underpriced property or something like that. Or even if it's something that seems like there's a sticker shock, maybe there's some hidden income opportunity with the property that brings it into kind of the world of the possible for you.
Well, I actually have a funny story, or it's a good story, I think, about a real estate transaction that there was more than the eye could see after looking into it. So a few years back, I wanted to buy a large chunk of bare land for recreational purposes, maybe like build a cabin. I don't really know. And I wanted to be in like Idaho or maybe Eastern Washington. So I had my Zillow thing and, got a feel for the market and what it is per acre and so on and so forth. And there was a property that had been listed for like over a year. And this was pretty much during some of the booming interest rates. This is 4 years ago. So it wasn't necessarily a slow market. But there was this 150 acre piece in Spokane area, Washington. And it had been listed longer than most properties. And they've done some price adjustments and whatnot. At some point, it was like over $1 million and they had come down. It was just on my watch list. I didn't really think much of it. And then one time they lowered it to like $820,000, still more than I wanted to pay for what I was looking for. But I had my realtor, going back to the haggling, he can do the haggling and be uncomfortable, not me. I just said, hey, what do you think about this one? And he's like, well, it's been listed for this long and it's a pretty cool piece. And I don't know, you want to go look at it? And I was like, yeah, call the realtor. So he calls their realtor and it's like, hey, I saw you just dropped the price. Give me the story. And they told the story. And it's, anyways, not a lot there, but it was two daughters who inherited it from their dad. They both like live in Seattle. They never there. They just want to sell it.
Yeah.
And he came back to me and said, well, they're dropping the price. They haven't got any traction. He's like, I think we should just lowball them.
Yeah.
See what happens.
For sure.
And I'm like, are you serious? This isn't a booming buyer or seller's market. So I'm like, we're just going to insult him. He's like, I'll offer him $400,000. It's like, that's 60% less than what, and they just dropped it. I'm like, whatever, dude, you go for it. So we offered him 4. And the realtor comes back and he's like, yeah, they obviously aren't going to take 4, but they said they would do like $675. And I'm like, oh, well, you just shaved off a lot of dollars.
Yeah, $175,000.
And I'm like, well, maybe I was like, could we swing like 650, 625? He goes, no, we're going to offer him 5. And I was like, that's why I started getting a little uncomfortable.
But you got the walk away.
I didn't need to have it.
Right.
Yes, I didn't need to have it. And so he comes back with 5. And then they come back, talk to the realtor again, and he comes back and he goes, hey, I'll just be honest with you. They're really motivated to sell it, and they don't really love 5. But if you can give us one more counter and put the number 7 in it, it's their lucky real estate number, and it'll go a long way. So we offered
207.
no, but we had to go up from 5. So we offered 547,
Okay.
and they said deal.
Wow. That's a beautiful
And
story. Great.
In hindsight, that ended up being like $7,000 an acre, which
Yeah.
is absolutely
That's a great, yeah.
incredible. And,
Yeah.
then we actually went and saw the place, and it was beautiful. It's like over
Yeah.
a lake, and
Oh,
it's
nice.
tons of opportunities.
So when are you inviting me out?
Yeah.
Once we have big plans. We have big plans. We have
But
some
that's a great story. I'm really glad for you. But, there are a couple of things that are really kind of fascinating to me because I did commercial real estate for a while. So the fact that the guy tipped the hand with
Yes.
2 women who had this is found money. This is not like they've got some kind of long history of emotional connection or something like that. That's a desperation move on the part of a realtor.
Right.
And that was like really super valuable information.
Well, agents want to move properties. They're not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's the other thing about it.
they're
Yeah.
not representing anybody but themselves.
I just wonder how many people looked at that property when it was at $1 million,
Yeah.
but they weren't quite as fatigued.
Sure.
That's it.
Who, if they probably did learn in hindsight what it sold for, and they're like, I would have paid that
Yeah.
immediately.
You should have accepted those 950 offers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
there was just this perfect storm of
Right.
buyer fatigue.
Yeah.
Market's not improving, and we're already in conversation.
Yeah.
Which that momentum is huge. People don't like to start the process over once they get it going.
Yep.
And so you put all those things together. So I, again, chalk that up to luck. It was a very lucky situation for all that stuff to come together, but it would never have happened if I would have just taken the Zillow listing at face value. And I'm
Right,
like, it's
right.
too expensive.
Sure.
Right.
It would have sold. They're not going to come down, or they already would, or
Right.
other developers would have saw the value. They're smarter than me.
Right.
But just starting that conversation created the opportunity.
Yeah. That's great. That's a great story. And I think it's one that should get a lot of people thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great stuff. So let's get back to the business.
Wait, what
We'll talk about anything but the business.
what business do you? What business are you in?
So you've got different locations now around the country. So
Yes.
you got started. You've gotten some good momentum. You've got, and I think too this getting back to the observation I made earlier about you had an ability to see an opportunity, the value that was present, but you also kind of had an ability to see what this could lead to in the sense of building it out. It's sort of like mining for gold. I've never done that, but I've been told, if you catch a vein, or you come across a vein and you just follow that vein, it can take you to all kinds of great places. But
Right.
that's not sort of the story I'm hearing from you, is that initially you just saw this little glimmer
Right.
and then you just followed it, and one thing leads to another.
Yeah. So for a few years there, we just kind of put our heads to the ground and just built our own books of business, and just got more clients and had goals that we wanted to get to financially. And as
It's you and the partner,
just, yeah,
and you're still your
Just our
admin that
admin.
you got from the church.
right. So
That
it
was
was just
10 years ago.
Yep. So, and then we got to a place where we needed to hire one more part-time admin just to help with paperwork and things like that. And where everything really changed was 2 things happened. We both kind of had a hard look in the mirror, and we're like, okay, I think he was 29 and I was 26 at the time.
Super old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Life is
we started running
flying
into
away.
this thing of, man, this is a great growth, but can we service all of these people?
Sure.
Yeah.
What does it look like to double again in 5 years and double again and double? It sounds awesome, but at the same time, is that the life you want? And how are you going to create the ability to do that and the bandwidth?
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of strategies in our industry. You bring in a junior advisor, you bring in associates, and I didn't like any of them. He didn't like any of them because it was a lot of high turnover and empty promises and things like that. So we started on our business trying to create efficiencies in our client servicing, so that we could just create more bandwidth and say, hey, we can get more clients as long as we hire more administrative staff, because we're going to build systems to service those clients in a way that takes less of our time and is still very high quality. So again, just trying to serve ourselves. And so we started doing some financial planning services that were more automated, and all of our client engagements were a little bit more automated or handled by staff who weren't licensed. It's a big thing in our industry. You have to be licensed. It's very difficult to become licensed. So you can't just hire people to be like a technician for you. They have to study for, it's not as bad as the bar exam, but it's similar. A lot of people, it takes them years to get past their licenses. So it's very difficult to find people to do that. So we built all these systems just so we could create more efficiency and grow for ourselves. Well, where everything really changed for us in our perspective was we were introduced. There was call him a vendor. He represents a fund company that we use, and we'd known him at different conferences and things. And he came to us, and he was in his 50s, and he said, "Hey, I have two sons that are working for like an insurance-based group, and I'd like them to go independent. I really like what you guys are doing. They're youngest in this room by 20 years. You seem to be doing very well. And I'd like my sons, would you mind just talking to them and give them your perspective?" And they were in their early 20s, just graduated from like UNC and Duke or one or the other. And so had a conversation with them. And they essentially, through that conversation, was like, "Hey, what would it look like to work with you guys?" So Nathan and I had a hard conversation of saying, like, is this what we want? Do we want to, how does this even work? Because what's keeping them from doing the same thing we did to Joe?
Right.
Again, it wasn't malicious. It was just business.
Right.
You just got to go do your own thing. You train them up, teach them everything. They say, "Thank you, have a good day." And then they go and feel like they can make more money on their own. And we didn't want that. So we kind of looked at our system and said, you know what, I think there is something valuable here in our space, where if we can provide value that's long-term value, not just I want to teach you how to do the business, then it could make sense to have other advisors come in underneath our brand. And that value was essentially the business side of the business. Like, hey, all the paperwork, all of the marketing, all the technology.
Right.
We figured out a really good system to not only grow your business, but then to process all that business and manage that business. So what we'll do is we will hire all the staff. We will pay for all the technology. We're going to give you all of our playbook for marketing and our niche markets that we had talked about, and essentially tell you exactly what we did to do what we did. And then we're going to take care of the stuff that was really annoying to us, because we kind of figured that out too. So you can just join and hit the ground running. And obviously there's a compensation split amongst that, but the burden is on us to say, this is not only going to be valuable for this year and next year, but 10, 20 years from now, where you would never think of it's not worth it to go do anything else. Not because you're under our thumb, but because you're like, this is a great situation that I'm in.
Right.
So that's what we proposed, and they joined us. And turns out 5 years later, they did everything that Nathan and I did, but twice as fast. And so the proof of the concept was there.
Yeah, right.
Like, hey, we removed so much friction and gave you our playbook. Now you're doing exactly what we did, that much faster. And so that kind of opened up this new world of saying, maybe we can start bringing in other advisors and scaling, making the business bigger than us. And that led to a couple of advisors in Boise and doing the same type of thing. So now we have this kind of squad, and which is really fun, because now based on what they're doing, we can afford to hire more staff, and that benefits the whole group. And now you actually have more of a, just because Jenny's sick doesn't mean we don't have an admin today, because we have more of a team effort. So it was beneficial for everyone. And then, so that was great. Again, didn't really know where it was going, other than it was kind of fun to work with other people. We weren't getting rich off of them by any means. We were reinvesting it essentially to the infrastructure, but there were synergies and such. But then the big, and this is kind of what we're currently looking at, opportunity presented itself. Back to what you're saying is we have a very aging industry. Yeah. And it's very popular in our industry right now to talk about like succession planning and older advisors, because so on and so forth. And so we started looking at that saying, again, I don't really want to bring on 500 more clients just for my own sake, but what am I going to do with my life for the next 20, 30 years to scale? And so we started looking at, well, maybe there's something to say in this succession planning world. And our first succession plan that we put together, we met another advisor at a conference and got to talking with him. And he was communicating that, I want to retire in a couple of years. I don't really have a plan. He lives in a very small town in Pennsylvania. So he's like, I had this guy that came from the community college. He didn't really work out, paid him a lot of money, and he just left. But that's the only way they have, he didn't,
no, don't do this.
he didn't have any kids in the business, which is a natural thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I don't want to sell out to a big firm because these are my friends. I go to church with them. All my clients are my friends. So we're like, hey, we have an option. So we're obviously much younger, but unlike a lot of young people, we have a ton of experience. And in fact, we probably have better systems than you because of the technology that we're using and so on and so forth. So what would it look like for us to buy your business? And we're going to bring in that fresh generation that you're looking for, but we're not from a community college that you're having to teach everything to. We'll actually improve your business on day one in a lot of ways. And
so we talked a little bit about this particular acquisition before, and it's kind of a culture shock kind of dynamic as well. There's some interesting wrinkles working in Pennsylvania with an older clientele.
And you could probably speak to East Coast culture more than I haven't spent much time there, to be honest. But as I have understood, because our guys in North Carolina, again, this little arsenal of advisors that we've built actually became very handy because we're like, hey, do you guys want to manage these clients? And we'll kind of work a deal where we're acquiring, and you guys can be on the boots on the ground, and then we'll be doing, again, the business side of the business. So they're like, yeah, they're young and hungry and saw an opportunity there. So they're the ones that actually go down to from North Carolina down to Pennsylvania. But there has been some wrinkles because we use DocuSign, we use all of Zoom, and we get feedback like, hey, this client doesn't have an email. What do you mean they don't have an email? And they certainly don't have Zoom. Like, they don't even own a computer. And we're like, all right, how are we going to do this? Because then, we're very technology.
This is Western Pennsylvania. I know this world.
I think I actually know that. I think you FedEx them an iPad.
Yeah, which is
in the mail, and they sign it, and then they put it in the back of the box, and it comes back to you.
And the most ironic thing about that is we're like, FedEx, how do you do that? I haven't FedExed anything ever.
You put the iPad
it's like another
Uber.
earlier generation.
Yeah.
Order an Uber. The Uber drives the iPad to the person, and then Ubers it right back to your office.
Right.
You can do
So
that.
this guy had a brick and mortar office. And, so their clients would come in, they'd talk to him for a couple hours about the dog and the weather and everything in between. And, they wanted you to print out this many documents and have your admin put the stickies next to the signature lines.
Right.
And go through the whole thing. And we're like, no, we're not doing that.
Right.
And in fact, we're actually going to shut down the office. And we're going to have go to a co-working space where the admin out there is going to be there 2 days a week. And if you really insist on seeing her face to face, you can go there. But other than that, we're going to move everyone on to virtual. So obviously, for a large part of the clients, that was no problem. But there was definitely there is currently a part of those clientele that it's taken a lot more hand-holding.
Yeah, sure.
So those are all just problems that show up that you got to fix and go and adjust, and we're making it work.
And I'm guessing that those clients are probably older themselves.
Right.
So that's fun. So you've got something in North Carolina, you've got something in Pennsylvania, you've got something in Boise, and you're here. So how many associates, is that what you would call them? How many people are
We
involved?
just call them advisors. Yeah. So there are 3 in Boise, including my business partner. And then we have 2 here in the Battleground, Vancouver area. And then we have 2 in North Carolina. And then technically the retiring advisor in Pennsylvania is kind of staying on semi-part-time with us as we wind down his business.
So how does it work structurally? It almost sounds like a franchising kind of thing. Is that how it works, or is it different?
Yeah. So basically, how it works is when you're in our industry, depending on who you're affiliated with, most people probably would know how realtors get paid, right? Where if they're with Keller Williams and they charge 5% or whatever it is, they're going to make $10,000. Well, they don't get to keep $10,000.
Right.
Keller Williams takes a cut. This whatever takes a cut, and they usually what they call it, they're on a payout grid. So, and the more the money that you make, the more money that you get to keep. So if you're brand new right off the street, you only get to keep half. But if you sell enough houses, maybe you get to keep 60%, right? Same thing works in our world where you have payout grids. So essentially you have an advisor who comes in right off the street. You're like, hey, we'll get you going. But again, you only get to keep half because there's a lot of expenses for us even having you. So we want that other piece. And we don't get to keep the other half all the way because we have institutions that we have to pay that we're a part of. So anyways, there's the one slice of the pie that everyone kind of divvies up for their piece. And so anyways, what we've essentially done is saying we have a very valuable thing here for you to go, and you're going to do better at your job faster, make more money in the long run working with us. But you're going to be on a grid that is essentially paying for that service. And we do the same way. We start someone out at a percentage, and then each year we look back at how much business they've generated, and they'll get bumped up to the higher percentage. And the more you make, the more you keep, the more you make. And we've designed that particularly just to target like a certain dollar amount, because that's what we deemed was needed just to support their business by hiring new staff and technology and things like that.
Yeah. So as I'm listening to the story, there are different phases of this story that require different, say, gift mix kind of components. In other words, what you're doing now is building out. So it's there's still this sort of value identification, being able to see value before maybe other people do. But then there's also just an ability to kind of work with systems and kind of think about how they will leverage your business and kind of bring you into like a new sort of set of opportunities, new income flow, that kind of stuff. Do you find that is something that came naturally to you, or is it like you're kind of more one than another? If you get my drift?
Yeah. I think for it's more has to do with having an inkling to know what people want. And maybe especially in areas where they have opportunities to work with other people, but those people have done a poor job of saying like, this is actually what these people want. So that's happened twice in our business with, I guess 3 times. One's with our clientels who work at these places. Well, what do they want? They don't want just a 1-800 number to their 401k provider. They want someone to come alongside them and help them.
Sure.
But nobody's hearing that or making that possible. So that's what made us pretty good at that part. And then when it came to other advisors, what do they want? They just want to be able to go and grow their business and meet with people and not spend hours and hours doing paperwork and trying to recreate the wheel business-wise. So we could provide what they want. And why other people aren't providing that or some other version of that, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But it's what we were able to identify. And then lastly, with these retiring advisors, this is a really interesting one because right now in the world of private equity and large institutions, I mean, they see this opportunity too of these advisors retiring, and they'll go say, hey, we'll throw 5x last year's revenue at you if you sell it to us. Like crazy multiples. So if some guy made $1 million last year, some bank will be like, hey, we'll buy your business. We'll give you $5 million to buy your business. And you're like, well, that's a great way to sell off into the sunset. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
Because they see it as this reoccurring business and it's good for them.
Right.
But all these advisors are saying no. Well, why are they saying no at 5x, 4x? That's crazy. Like that seems
Standard like 2x your revenue, your book, your revenue. Yeah. So if you're getting 5x.
Yeah. These groups are paying extremely large amounts of money, and all these older advisors are saying no. So like, why is that?
Yeah. Is it because of the personal connections, or?
It's because they have worked with these clients for 40 years.
Right.
And they're like, I'm not going to I feel like they're like, I cannot sleep at night if I just hand them over to BlackRock or whatever it is.
Right.
And it's interesting because a young entrepreneur, I'd be like, dude, take the money. Like, they'll be all right. But there's something about age and wisdom and things. And again, if they've run a successful business, they don't need the money.
Right.
That's the other part of it.
Yeah, they're at a stage of life it's not about that.
Yeah. So we've approached these conversations of saying, I think I know what you want, but tell me what you want. And what they all want the same thing. I want to make sure my wife is okay if something happens to me.
Yep.
I want to make sure my clients are okay. And I want to make sure my staff are okay.
Yeah.
That continuity is way more important. And these large institutions can't promise any of that.
Do you think your background in the ministry helps you with that?
I think so. The pastoral track, the program director, I remember being in some of the classes, and every year he'd bring in for us seniors, or for the senior class, he would bring in someone who had graduated, who was not in ministry. from the pastoral program who was running a business or in the workforce.
Interesting.
So he made it a big point to say, hey, the skills you're learning here are applicable in the real world.
Right.
And I remember watching these people who come in who worked for different companies or had their own business. And I always thought like, hey, that could be me someday in the back of my mind, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our school doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
So I won't have that opportunity.
Yeah, it's a shame.
But in Multnomah, I got shut down. And so did Concordia. So I have no alma mater.
Yeah, a lot. I'm the same. I'm in the same boat. So a lot of, Christian liberal arts colleges are no more.
Yeah. So all that to say, our program director did a really good job reinforcing that. And in hindsight now, I mean, I don't know how much I use theology and eschatology on my day-to-day job, but it informs other motivations.
Right.
But as far as my day-to-day goes, I would like to think that a lot of those pastoral skills of listening, understanding, guiding, they're very applicable in my industry, especially with a topic like money.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is a conversation we had. You didn't think that you had a pastoral bone in your body, and I said, no. You actually demonstrated you had a pastor's heart by listening to a bunch of old dudes on their boats complain about their divorces and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do think that's huge. I mean, it's not like you become mercenary about it. It's just that there's a carryover. There's just this natural, if you really care about people and you're not just thinking about walking away with money, but you'd like to. Yeah.
Well, I think that goes also back to when you get to the root cause of most entrepreneurs that I come across, because it's not about money. A desire to be wealthy isn't usually enough fuel. And people, I think my coined phrase was, I do what I do to make the world a better place. And I could extrapolate more. I won't. But most entrepreneurs, if they have the grit, they want to do some element of that, whether they're faith believing Christians or not. They actually truly want to make a good impact. And so, I mean, that
leave the world a better place than they found it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's, I mean, I don't know. You can't survive. I mean, there's if all you're trying to do is become wealthy, you're not going to make it the first 5-7 years when you're eating Costco hot dogs, living living in a guy house,
Right.
But another story for another day.
I've thought a lot about the whole pastoral thing too, and one question that's interesting is, the idea is pastoring or the pastoral nature of things. Is it a gift or is it an office?
Yeah.
And I went to a college that taught you the office of it.
Right.
And there was a lot of practical things, how to run an organization, how to, teach, things like that, counsel. But at the heart of it, I think most Bible folks would agree, it's actually a gift.
Right.
And you may or may not have it. And you can learn some of these skills, but there's something deeper there. And I think I have the gift of pastoring to some extent. So it becomes, how much was it nature versus nurture?
Right.
Those skills that I quote unquote might possess, because you can have my business partner, he might have gone through the same pastoral program, but he has different gifts. Yeah. So how those get expressed.
Well, getting back to the original, piece of advice you got that to explore this house builder said, you look like the guys that I build these houses for.
Yeah.
Did he ever explain to you what those traits were that he saw in them?
He actually never did. And I haven't talked to him in a long time. Maybe that's a good question. I should check in with him.
It's just fascinating.
He probably doesn't even remember.
I was going to say, you're going to go ask him. He's like, what? I told you, I should have never told you that. And you're like, oh, that changed my whole life.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well.
It is funny how those things happen.
You're right. So we're getting to that point where we're going to wrap it up here. Is there anything maybe that we didn't get to that you wanted to talk about briefly before we do?
In terms of the spirit of this show and young people becoming entrepreneur, understanding if they are entrepreneurial, I think for me, just to highlight what gave me that courage, because I did have moments. I remember there was a specific moment when it was very high stakes. Yeah. My church was offering me a full-time job at the church.
Yeah.
And this insurance company was offering me this commission-only job in Tigard, Oregon. What am I going to do?
Right.
But in the moment, that was a very big decision
Sure.
for
Oh,
me.
sure.
It didn't matter what the jobs were. It was an existential moment of, am I going to take the safe route or am I going to take the risky route?
Yeah.
And God bless my mom. She's very entrepreneurial too.
Oh, good.
And
It's great to have people in your life that can
Yes.
support you in a moment like
yeah,
that.
and I asked her explicitly. And my wife is a wonderful person, not entrepreneurial at all.
Right.
So I knew I couldn't really take this conversation that
Sure.
closely to her. So I talked to my mom, and she encouraged me. She's like, I think you would regret it if you didn't at least try.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, there wasn't anything great about what I was trying. It was just more of a decision I was making.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that one thing you could ask yourself if you're thinking about these types of things is like, are you miserable
Yeah.
working for someone else? 'Cause
Right.
that's probably never going to change.
Right.
It has to, something's like inside of all of us
Yeah.
that are entrepreneurial that just is just suffocating.
Right.
And I saw that from day one. I'm like, I cannot do this. I can't work hourly. I can't do, answer to people that I don't respect. Like it just is not going to work. So that's I think as a clue
Yeah.
that you might be entrepreneurial.
Great. Well, that's a great note to end on. Thanks,
Oh.
thanks, Cory, for coming.
So many questions I have now. That's a horrible note.
Well, maybe
to
we can
end
have him
on.
back for another episode.
I think we're going to need to do that.
This was a lot of fun. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.